Hello my sea fish, Seabro here, and today we are going to be looking at a Grandmaster Ashe player on Gibraltar. In this video we look at how to utilise the high ground on Watchpoint Gibralatar as Ashe and related positioning stuff. Anyways, let's jump straight into the video. Okay, so here we go on the low ground, which is one, ultra vulnerable to being spammed out or dived, but more importantly, you are attacking, right? The enemy doesn't have to do jack all if they don't want to. They can sit emoting on ship for all they care, and just wait for the cart to be pushed. You have two options, well, your tanks have two options. It's not really up to you. They either contest cart and force a fight there, or they can try and take the high ground. As it happens on second point, Watchpoint Gibraltar, this high ground is the most important high ground in the entire game. Literally, you have view of all of second point, and you literally control all of it, right? You can drop down anywhere. It's ultra powerful. So your team's going to probably be looking to start to try and push up there. Ideally, they'll use one of their many ultimates that they've got available, Primal Monkey, Nano Monkey, Diva Bomb, for example, to try and put enough pressure on there to get the enemy team to leave, and then they'll stage, or at least the tanks will stage a dive. But importantly, on this low ground here, you are not in position to help them do that, right? You're taking that option away from them. If your monkey jumps on top of the ship now, he's not going to have you with him, is he? In fact, there are many places where the fight could take place that you don't have sightlines or access immediately to the sightlines to be able to contribute. If the enemy back up into this room, we don't have sights. If the enemy take a fight on top of ship, we don't have sights. In the ship, we don't have sights. And in fact, to get to any of those high grounds, we need to use coach gun, right? Which is obviously not ideal to have wasted against their composition. Nice.
Hey, how y'all doing? Hello.
You push really far forward here when you haven't looked back at where your team is. Anytime you push in front of your team, you need to look around and check that your team is in position to enable you to do that. If you sit here and get slept by Anna and your Winston can't bubble you, your Diva can't DM you, and your Anna can't heal you, then you'll kind of just throw second point, right? In fact, you could even be fighting people here, go, oh, I'm going to go back to my team, but you don't know if your team are positioned ridiculously far back that you can't get back to them with a single use of coach gun. I just recommend any time that you push in front of your tanks and you take a really aggressive position, in fact, just constantly check where your team is. It just means that you throw that little bit less. But in many ways, this isn't where we want to be taking the fight, right? I know you might have just misinterpreted how far the spawns were coming back. But this second point Gibraltar is all about the ship, right? This high ground is too strong to ignore it, especially when you have a dive or dive-based composition. Whoever has control of the ship has control of pretty much all of second point, right? Because they can drop down literally anywhere. But it also means it's a really strong position to defend, right? Because there are 4 chokes on second point Gibraltar that they can push through. And you literally have sights on all of them. You can just spam damage. If they come through, you can try and dynamite their backline or whatnot. And the enemy team have to invest a lot of abilities and possibly ultimates to even get to you, to even start that fight. Whereas by standing here, they literally can walk up to you. Monkey can walk up to you, Diva can walk up to you, the DPS can just walk up to you. They don't have to use anything. And on top of that, your team probably aren't expecting you to be standing here, so they're probably not looking to get into position to enable you to do that. In general, just everything in second point is about the ship, so try to use it.
How y'all doing? Hello.
And now we are in a really poor position. Nice, we take the ship. We don't know which door they're going to go through, right? Standing here, you can't react in time to get a dynamite or shots off on their backline. When the enemy team pushes through a choke, and this is any choke, you have a very limited time to punish them, especially against dive tanks, right? They are going to jump you as soon as they push through that choke. So if you are out of line of sight of that choke, even for like the splittest of seconds, it stops you spamming them out at a really crucial time and makes it much easier for them to contest you off the high ground. Here, unless you know which exit they're going to use, and that might be because of sights, or if for some reason you have like a sombra maybe behind the team telling you which exit they're going to use, then you want to have access to all of them. And that way you can take your pick. So this is an example of how you're meant to take ship, right? You invest ultimate. Obviously they have pumped out Primal and Nano and Valk, which isn't ideal for them. It means next fight they won't have Primal or Nano. And in fact, this way they're not actually doing it particularly well because their fire isn't with them. You've done a really good job of suppressing their pharmacy so they can't actually commit with the Winston. But at least they're trying to take the high ground, right? But this drop here, I'm not a big fan of. It's not bad by any means, and you're right to drop when you did. You don't have your coach gun ups, right? So it might have been a bit risky jumping onto the lower part of ship, but it would have allowed you to contest the enemy Ana or look for some easy dynamites on the backline. If you were feeling a little bit risky, you could try and do that. But probably the preferred option was to drop onto this box here, which would allow you to pill for your Ana, right? And your Ana to pill for you. And that way, both you and your Ana are less susceptible to being jumped by the Winston. Also, if you want to drop to the left side of point, then you should drop behind these boxes. At the moment, you are bang dead in the middle of the open. You are accessible to Farah spam, you are accessible to being dived by Winston, you're accessible even to Ana shots. So this is generally considered a bad position. Unlucky. Not the worst death in the world, not gonna lie, it's fine. The recontesting Bob was great and the dynamite was very decent. I'm a big fan of that play. Nice pick. Unlucky, you panic coach gunned into a wall. It happens, it happens. You are in a rush, so I'm fine with you coach gunning onto that. Here you dynamite before you even see the enemy, which kind of worries me. There is advantages to doing it. It's more of a surprise and you're more likely to be able to get it out before the enemy can test you. But generally speaking, I would prefer waiting half a second just so you can actually see the enemy before you throw it. And then it avoids that awkward moments that I've seen loads where you hit absolutely nothing. Dynamite is a really strong ability. So personally, I recommend being able to see things before you throw it. That's my opinion though, some people disagree with me. And that is absolutely fine. Lovely pick though. They have a Widow and Farah spam. This is really safe. I'm a big fan of this angle. Your Winston is actually trolling. Coach gun out, that's fine. Your team didn't set up properly, so you can't really keep that high ground. That's your team's fault, not yours. This is an interesting position actually, I quite like it.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
Let's get you back in the fight.
We take the high ground again. Unfortunate Bob, but even if it did run properly towards the enemy, you can only see D.Va here when you throw it, so I would have preferred if you waited to get a little bit more value. Bob is great at contesting point, but also at splitting the team, so if you can't see the enemy team, then it's going to be very difficult for you to split that team. We leave our Anna to try and push forward to make a play. That's fine, not much you can kind of do against a nano monkey. Risky. Your aim, your mechanics, they're really great, right? Which is really good. That's often the hardest thing to train, so it's really good to see that is totally fine with you. Nice dynamite, I like it.
Hey, you go.
10 seconds remaining.
This is really nice, taking the high ground when you see Winston usually. Your aim is spot on. Can't blame you for taking Widow Jules when you have the first shot and you have such good aim. Beautiful. Nice round. That last fight was really nice. Lovely to watch. Anyways, let's check out the next round. Okay, we stick on Ashe on attack here. Damn, unlucky. Going out with our D.Va is probably the easiest way to avoid that happening, but it's not a biggie. Not a biggie at all. Risky.
Enemy contact. Let me.
Lovely dynamite. Honestly though, I would be tempted to just hide here and wait to dynamite as your Winston engages. When you have big dynamite opportunities like this, it'll give you ultimate very quickly if you throw it, but it can also be used to carry the fight. But it can only carry the fight if it's combined with other damage. Like, if they were playing a mobile comp, then this opportunity might pass very quickly. But they are playing behind an Orisha shield, so you can wait a few seconds for your Winston to soft dive them, then chuck your dynamite and you might get a pick. Or you might be able to force out immortality fills or something. Your ammo is very valuable, don't waste that shields that your team can't break. It is not your job to push cards. This fight is bloody awful. This belongs in Plat, not GM. No offense to Plats, but your Anna threw, your Winston threw, everybody threw, but I'll explain why your positioning on this point was fairly bad. On first point, the attacking team usually just pushes the cart right under here. The defending team waits for it to be pushed under the pit or dugout or whatever you want to call it to then contest. Your team will then want to push the remaining enemies off the high ground and then set up. That's usually how it goes. And you can see why you don't really want to be playing here, right? D.Va needs to push the cart, that's fine. She can get up and contest the high ground really easily, but you need to be setting up where you can contest the high ground when this fight takes place. You are playing Ashe Widow, and you want to be taking angles to force the enemy off the high ground so your tanks can set up. My suggestion here would be to play on this bridge. If they drop down on the other side of the boxes or your team pushes, then you can move up and take this juicy high ground and get some insane dynamites out. Also, since you and your Widow have a Mercy, you should both be pretty safe and you'll get some really nice cross angles with her down here. I hope that makes sense, but there's not really any reason for you to be pushing car. It just avoids any sort of ability to contest the high ground and it makes you ultra easy to kill as well. Yes, you're safer against the Widow, but I think wasting Coach Gun is still risky here. And then we die because Echo is totally a balanced hero. Okay, that's really sexy dynamite, right? I really like watching that. But you don't need it because you have ultimate, right? So you just wait to engage to get value out of it. All you're doing by chucking a dynamite over there is giving the healers ult charge. It's okay. Technically the Bob separates the Echo from the enemy team. But again, you don't know where the enemy is before you pop it. But whilst we're here, imagine you were playing up here right now on this high ground. Look at this angle for dynamites or bobs. It's great. Ranked is a strange and wonderful place.
Hey. Hey. Hey.
You are so unlucky. We then switched to Tracer, so let me fast forward just a little bit. And back to Ashe. Your composition now really sucks. This is going to be really difficult.
How y'all doing? Hey.
60 seconds remaining.
Let's get the payload moving again. My ultimate is ready. I have it.
Here it comes.
You try to engage when your team's not ready, right? So you die 1v6. This engagement is risky enough as it is because the enemy has a McCree, and this is like McCree's perfect range. It's going to flashbang you, pew pew pew, dead. But it's made even worse by the fact that your team's not putting any pressure on them whatsoever. So literally every single enemy on the enemy team can turn around and kill you. Literally all of them. And you're squishy, so I really don't like this play. If you are going to try this play, then try to stay a little bit further back, away from the McCree, and try to engage it when your tanks try to engage. But you're just hardcore beating here, right? Then I'll skip the Echo gameplay, because I'm not VOD reviewing that. Boom! And then we win! GG's! Let's talk about your Ashe gameplay. Okay, so you had a big problem with map understanding on Gibraltar and claiming the high ground properly. You need to be aware that where you set up needs to be in line of sight of where you expect the team fight to be. And that's really important, and it's universal to all maps and every game that you're going to be in. In fact, it's universally applicable to most heroes. But the reason it's so important in this game is because the high ground is so important. So if you aren't setting up in a position where you can help your team take the high ground, then you are stopping them from being effective. Obviously, you also need to make sure that you set up in somewhere that is safe-ish, and that's a big part of playing Ashe, right? Is balancing getting those effective angles and safe angles. Other than that, and that was your main thing, I feel like your bobs don't really split the team very well. I feel like waiting and holding onto it a little bit longer, or trying to find that juicy angle will get much more value out of it. I don't really like the fact that you use your abilities before you can see the target. I don't like that our positioning often makes us vulnerable to dives. Where you position needs to be according with your team. It can't just be somewhere that you feel like you can get value. You need to think, how can this enable my team during the fights? But also, am I protected from the other people on my team? Do they have angles if I get jumped? Those sort of things. That was really nice gameplay. I did actually really enjoy watching that. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If anyone wants a VOD review of their own, then submit one in the comments of this video. As always, I hope you have a great day, great week, great year, great whatever. I hope anything that you're doing and working towards at the moment is going really well, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!